From a local radio station mascot to the president of the most successful production company in daytime talk, Erik Logan has not only made a name for himself here in Oklahoma, but across the nation as well. Harpo, Citadel Broadcasting, and XM Satellite Radio are just a few companies that have been fortunate enough to have Logan on board. He's also a husband, a father, a music lover, and today he joins us here on a special extended episode of 15 Minutes Of to discuss his life and journey to success. So thanks for joining us today.
I feel like it's old home week. I grew up like 2 blocks away. This is great.
Yeah, I know. Pretty close to
This is
home.
what happens in these buildings. It's really neat.
I know. It's kind of tucked away here. It's like the best secret of OCU.
For sure.
We're so happy you found us
Thank
today,
you.
and it's good to have you here. For those of you at home who are watching today, we have a live studio audience, so that's pretty new and pretty fun. And we'll be taking some questions later from some students here in the audience as well. So to get started, I just want to ask you a little bit about how you got involved in this industry. I know earlier you talked about coming from Oklahoma and kind of how that drove you towards all the places that you've been. Can you just discuss a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Well, I think everybody's journey starts off differently. And you sometimes don't even realize you're actually on the beginning part. And, for those of you who weren't around earlier, we talked about that, my first job in radio was a mascot. It was, I was Chuck the Duck. I had orange tights and I had webbed feet and a big foam head. And little do you know at the time when that's happening that you're actually beginning a career. And I fell into something that I didn't know I loved, and I was open to it, and it really allowed me to express myself in a different way. I was expressing myself through the Boy Scouts, doing a lot of programs for the Boy Scouts as a young adult, and even as a teenager early on. And so, being around radio and sort of being and seeing the magic of, there was a guy with this like silver microphone, and he was on the Northwest Expressway, and he said, "Come by and see me," and people magically appeared. I'm like, that's kind of cool. How does that happen? And so I just sort of got into it, and I was open to trying and doing literally anything and everything. And one of the stories I didn't share earlier was one that, I had an early on philosophy that if I was the guy who drove the station van and did the remote, set up the truck, did the mascot, cut the tape. If I did every job in the radio station, if they were going to fire me, they'd have to fire me like 15 times.
That's true.
Like, well, you can't fire him. He does everything. And so it was an inverse way of sort of figuring out, well, how can I learn everything I can possibly learn on the job? So, that sort of approach I have really maintained to this day, as we've moved along in our career, to see, all the different opportunities that are out there. So it's just been, always seeking to learn. And that I would say if there's one piece of advice, it's like if you get into something you like, learn everything you can learn about it and never miss an opportunity to learn.
Okay, cool. So since you've had like tons of opportunities, you've done a lot of different things. What would you say has been your most memorable job experience?
Oh, wow. Probably getting out of the coyote outfit. When I could get a paycheck without having to wear something with a foamed head and fur, that was like, okay, now we're on our way. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's almost like choosing between your children, because I think that every opportunity along the way shapes you, and I think every opportunity along the way shapes what you can be and what you can become. So I have taken little bits of the good, a little bits of the bad, and I take it in every day, and I look back on it, and I really try to apply it in a different way. So experiences I have all the way back to being a young program director in Oklahoma City and being a disc jockey and working at KOCO TV here in the town. I still lean on some of those learnings, even with what I'm doing today.
Okay, cool. Also, so since now you do, some pretty big stuff, can you just kind of take us through your typical day at work?
Sure, sure. It's it's interesting. One of the things that I think is really, really important to anybody in the business world or career world is you have to find a sense of balance. You have to have your time to be yourself or do anything. So, with a young family at home, I've got 2 girls that are 7 and 4, and a wife who really has the hardest of the 2 jobs for the household is raising our children. I choose to go into work very early. So my alarm goes off about 4:45 in the morning. I'll get up, I'll entertain the thought of working out, and sometimes never quite make it. But I always wake up with the intention, like, today's the day I'm going to run the 5 miles.
I think we all do that.
Yeah, and then something happens between the tennis shoes and the Starbucks that it just sort of falls apart. But I usually get into the office around 6 or 6:30, and it's never, if some people have viewed it as like, oh, you want to be the first one in because you sent a message. No, I actually try to be the first one in because the office is quiet and I can get some things done. So we'll work through the day, and where I sit today, I've got a wonderful partner, a woman by the name of Sherry Salata, who, for fans of season 25, she was Oprah's executive producer for those last 4 years of the show. And she and I run the companies together as an amazing tandem, which is a really great story. And Sherry and I will talk in the mornings, and each day's different. One day it could be a creative challenge. The next day it could be, an affiliate challenge. It could be any number of other businesses that are changed. But every day is different. And so trying to predict what will happen that day, I gave that up long ago. But to the balance part, which I think is very important, is that I've got a boundary that I set around 5 or 5:15 or 5:30 every day, like clockwork. If I'm in a meeting, I'll get up and I'll walk out around 5 or 5:15. And I'll drive home, and that will give me about 2 hours with my family. And I get to see my girls, I get to read them their stories, and if I'm in town, they know that I'm there for bedtime and bath time. And even in Harpo, when I was living in Chicago, people would be like, oh, it's bath time for Elo, there goes Erik, and so I'll leave. And it was a little novelty in the beginning, but it's very important. And you can see the impact I'm having on my family and with my wife, and I see the benefits selfishly for myself, that it gives me that perspective that I think you can lose when you go all in. And everybody just is like, all I do is work and all you do is study. I think you really have to look at it for yourself and say, I'm going to put some hard boundaries about it and stick to those, because it's easy to slide. The running part, that boundary's not working out too well, but the other part we're working on. So.
Well, how do you keep that balance, though? Because I know, like, as a professional, you even discussed earlier being passionate about what you do and, putting everything into what you do, but how do you balance that with your family life, too?
It's very hard. I mean, and you get tested a lot. And I think that there's always something to do at work, no matter what you do. There's always an email to return. There's always a call to return. And the amazing thing is that if you put a 2-hour period in between time, it'll still be there. And I think when people understand that is your boundary, an amazing thing happens is they turn out and they wind up respecting that. And they'll be like, he's home taking care of the kids, it can wait a few minutes. Okay. Even to take the time to come here, most of the people knew that I'm here, I'm visiting family, I'm seeing some friends, and they're very respectful of the calls. Now, don't kid yourself, my email is, is stacked up to here, but I'll get to it. It'll be fine. If somebody really needs you, they'll call. But I think it is part of your maturation as, as a career woman or career man in your life, about how you establish those boundaries and how you protect them. But it gets hard. You travel a lot. I'm on the road a lot. We have offices in New York and Chicago and L.A. and so it is a balancing act. But it really highlights this issue about how time really is the most precious commodity that we all have.
So what keeps you motivated and keep going, even though it gets a little crazy at times, I'm sure? What keeps you going and pushing? Well,
I think it's just, I have a very competitive upbringing. I've got a younger brother who's 7 years younger than me. I played sports, never ever liked to lose. And so I think you're either competitive by nature or you're not. And I don't really have the goals that are written out of I want to do X by this date or Y by this date. Personally, I've always been just trying to make the next day better than the day before, and just and it is something you love to do. And the only way I can really express it is when you find your passion or what you love to do, or some people would say your calling, whatever your calling is, it doesn't feel like work and it doesn't feel like motivation, because it is what you're called to do. So you don't have to be like, all right, I got to get myself up and I got to get myself and I have to go. It never feels like that.
Yeah.
That would feel like a job to me. This doesn't feel like a job to me. This feels like what I enjoy doing.
So what advice can you give to students that are struggling with, following their passion and what they really want to do? How do you know for sure if that's something that you want to do or should pursue?
Well, I would ask the first question, does this feel like work to you or does this feel like fun?
Okay.
So right now, I'm sure if I were to ask you, is this fun for you? Are you having fun right at this very moment? And I think your answer would be?
Yes.
So that is a very clear indication about how I think you feel that this is something you want to chase. Now, whether or not you wind up as an anchor or you wind up as somebody who does this for a living, you know that it leads to a place. And I think that for everybody, those moments are out there. And I think that when you ask yourself that question, what am I getting out of this? Does this feel like fun to me or does this feel like work? Then that helps lead your path. For some people, manual labor may be something that they really enjoy doing. I know if I'm ever doing manual labor, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Because that does feel like work to me. I should not do that, so I'll do something else. So my advice to students who start going into the professional world is, if you have an idea of where you want to go, just lean into it no matter what you do. Just be around it. Pick up the energy. Pick up whatever you can.
Okay.
And then just bring it in. And then take that to the next level. And make sure it always feels like fun to you, or see the fun in it. Because there are points in time, I don't care what anybody says, from the outside looking in, it looks like a great job for no matter what you do. But there are very big moments where it feels overwhelming to everybody, no matter what it is. But you need to be able to see the fun or see the value in what you do. So ask yourself, is this fun or is this work?
Okay, good advice.
Sure.
So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back on 15 Minutes of from more with Erik Logan, so stay tuned.
You're watching OCU TV.
Welcome back to 15 Minutes of. We're here now with some student questions for Erik Logan. First off, we have Vishu, and she has a question. She is a sophomore entertainment business major.
Hi, I just had the question of, you mentioned earlier that you spend an hour preparing for 10 minutes in a meeting. So what did you do to prepare for when you went into an opportunity that you perhaps didn't have any knowledge of, for example, television from radio?
Well, I think that, we were talking earlier about, two very important words that people can walk away with, which is focus and preparation. And, the question always gets back to, it's like, well, how do you know when you're fully prepared? And I think that trying to find a way to measure that is key. And so one of the things that I've chosen to do is that if I'm going to do a briefing for anybody, whether or not it's a school or this group here or whomever it may be, for every 10 minutes that I would be talking or doing, I would spend an hour preparing. So if it's an hour speech, it would be, call it, 6 hours of preparation for that one. That was just a way that I knew that I had invested enough time and energy into it. Sometimes it'd be less, sometimes it'd be more. But when it comes to some big, massive change about what to be prepared for, you really have to ask yourself, what is it you don't know? What is it that you need to know? And so I think that I tried to become an expert on as many different things as you could. And so I'd research questions, I'd ask myself what I didn't know, I'd ask myself questions like, how does something work? And try to remove myself from the change per se and ask, well, what is it that drives whatever the business would be? And so, the way I would think about what I would do and if I were changing careers would be, how do I how do I apply that from a business point of view? I was more of the business side than the creative side. My partner Sherry approaches things from the creative point of view, solving it the same way. So there are certain things that I'm better at than not, and so I'd start off with what I thought I was good at, whether or not it be finance or strategy or whatever it would be, and then I would say, okay, what is it that I need to know about this field and try to apply what I know toward it. And my upbringing in the business world had been testing me along the way for that. So whether or not it was one radio station versus 3, to satellite radio, to anything else, it really came back to fundamental principles in terms of business. You try to have more revenue than less expense. That was like, okay, job one. That's how you make money. And then you just go from there and try to keep it simple, because there's no way for you to know everything. I don't know everything today. We are, we're running some really interesting and fun businesses, and there are a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things we do know, but there's a lot of things we don't know as well. And I think that the moment you think you know it, you stop learning, and when that happens, I think that's when you become vulnerable. So I would encourage you, no matter what it is you choose to do, to continue to do that, and that's what we try to do every day.
All right, this is Kristen. She is a sophomore entertainment business major, and she has a question.
You've obviously been talking a lot about learning a lot of different skills and how that's helping you in other business ventures. Did you find that it was helpful for you to have a team of people that worked with you and helped you out? Because, how difficult was it for you to translate what you've learned, and how would having a team of people help you with that?
Well, teams are important, and I think, Bob was talking at the end of it about, the value of mentorship. And, one of the things as I have gone from, job to job, or a career change to a career change, or station to station, or whatever it would be, is I would always ask and try to figure out ways to learn things. And I wanted to learn more about, the legal aspect. I'm not an attorney, but understanding contract law. I'm not an expert in, finance, but, I know the fundamentals of finance. So through each job, I had to have people on my team that were willing to teach me. At the same point in time, they wanted to learn something too. And typically an attorney or an entertainment attorney or a accountant or whoever, they have the same aspirations as I do. That's what you realize. They want to learn, they want to grow, just like I do. So it becomes a very collective information exchange. And when I was very young, I had to do that in order to try to find a way to lead or manage, because most of the people I was managing when I first started my career, they were twice my age. They were older than my parents. So I really needed to ask for help. And so I'd take in what they have, I'd try to hear what it would be, and try to learn from their experiences. And I think that it's still very similar today. As we continue to grow our business and grow our companies, it's very important for us to try to bring people together for a collective good. And it's really about the vision of what you're trying to do. And so I think that the undervalued thing I say to young executives or people in an organization is to ask. It's okay. It is not a sign of weakness to say that you don't know the answer to a question. It is actually a sign of strength for you to say, listen, I don't know, can you help me figure that out? No one person is supposed to know everything. And once you really understand that, then I think it really unlocks a world of opportunity of learning and growth. And it's all about, as we were talking earlier about when you get into a profession or a field or a job, just learn everything you can about it, because you just never know when one of those simple learnings is going to help you. But the value of team and the value of people around you and surrounding yourself with people is without doubt, a must if you want to continue to grow in your professional life.
All right. This is Sarah. She's another sophomore entertainment business major.
Hi.
Hello.
Someone in your job position obviously has amazing organizational skills.
Well, let's not get carried away.
So I was just wondering if you had any organization tips to give us, and also how much your organization really plays into the day-to-day life and in the office and preparing for meetings and everything like that.
Well, the organization plays a huge role, because I'm not the most organized person on the planet. I have my piles of everything on my desk, and my piles are very organized, just like my piles of clothes at home. My wife disagrees with it, but there is actually an art to the piles of my clothes. I've been accused of passing on bad habits to my children in terms of that, but I have found a way to process things of density, I like to say, and try to communicate in very simplistic terms and trying to really understand what it is from a prioritization standpoint you want to do. So I try to collect my thoughts, every morning, every day, and really focus on what are the tasks that need to happen to move the business forward. Because I think you all will realize and learn that if you really wanted to fill up your day, you could. You could fill up your day just with a lot of white noise. You could fill up your day by answering email. You could fill up your day by doing a lot of things. I would tell you that you need to take control of your time. You need to be, how do you want to apply yourself? How do you want to put your time into what it is you want to do? The bigger the organization gets, the more dependent you are on structure in teams and accountability and departments. And that is where, as a leader or as a manager, as you move through your life, you need to make sure that when you delegate things down, things are happening. And so the further away from the day-to-day you get, there's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you don't have to do the day-to-day, but the curse is you're away from it. So you as a manager have to figure out how close can I stay to the work actually getting done so that you understand what it is, and then pull far enough away that you can drive the business. And that sort of push and pull is I think every executive will tell you, is really the art of running businesses. And there are times when you have to jump right into the hole, and you have to jump right into the fire, and you have to be doing something that you haven't done for 10 or 15 years. That's okay. At the same point in time, you need to know when to pull out to do it. And that just comes from trial and error, and that's just experience. And so personally, I try to return every phone call within 24 or 36 hours, if not for me, but someone from the office to know the message got in. And I think that's an important thing to do. I have a thing about email. I'll just tell you that I think that email is a way for people to hide behind delivering news or human interaction. If I have to type an email that's more than 3 sentences, unless it's a memo, I typically will pick up the phone, and I encourage people to do that because there's no substitute of you and I having a conversation right now. I could send you an email about this, but you wouldn't feel what somebody is saying. That's an important thing, and I think that is going to be one of the most powerful things as you move into your professional life, because everybody's going to want to multitask and email and tweet and Facebook and everything that everybody does, which are critical and they're important, and I understand that. But don't mistake that for actually leading and touching people. So I use it as a tool. I don't use it as a substitute. And that's one of the things I try to do.
All right.
Sure.
This is Erica. She's a senior mass comm major.
Hi, my question is, how important is networking for us senior students, and what advice can you give us about networking in the media career field?
Well, I think networking is everything. I think the more people you know, the better it is. And I think it's like not even people that you know. I think it really comes down to what is it that you want them to know about yourself. There was a woman earlier today in one of our sessions that stood up in the back left, and she had 2 Thunder shirts on, and she was telling me about her journey, about what it is she's going to do. And there's no doubt in my mind that she is going to be, a positive influence, talking to people in a positive way. So she has come out and said, this is what I'm going to do. So now I know what she's trying to do. So as opportunities come across my mind, oh yeah, there's a woman I met, and that is how it happens, versus somebody who says, hey, can you help me get a job? I think you have to be very clear about what it is you as a person want to do. And as you meet people, it's okay to say, hey, I'm Eric, this is what I'm trying to do, and have somebody understand and go, wow, you have a lot of ambition. And I think that the networking part is an important part. And networking is about people seeing you. It's not about you sending an email or you following somebody on Twitter. It's about somebody seeing you. And when you get an opportunity to be in any organization, no matter where it is on the ladder of rung, whether or not it's a low rung or a high rung, when you get an opportunity to be there, you should embrace that. And you should, if that is what you want to do, you need to throw yourself at that. Because, that is really my only advice, because that is the only way I figured it out. And that is the only thing I know how to do, is throw myself into it. Because then and only then do you really sort of understand it. And then when you meet people, you start attracting the same type of people. I see people in business that, yes, I may leave at 5:15 to be home with my children, but yet I still will be the first one in the office 4 hours before anybody else. And it's not about keeping score, as it's more about, I've now evolved to a place where I need to have balance, but most importantly, it is I want to be surrounding myself with people who want to throw themselves into it the same way. And success begins success. And I think, from your point of view, when you meet people about what opportunities do you have, this is what I'm trying to do, I'd be willing to come in, and that energy and that feeling that you're willing to do whatever it takes to come in and learn is invaluable. And that is a very powerful, powerful calling card for anybody who's starting in the field. So I think that, coupled with the networking piece, is a very important part, and it's never too early to start, never too early. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, our last question's from Allison, and she is a junior mass comm major.
So I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you turned down Oprah. How and why, would you turn her down and then, I guess, go back and then tell us that story?
Well, it's a fun story. It's one that she's shared before. I, at the time, was when she offered me the job to come work for her at Harpo. I was running XM satellite radio, and they were in the process of merging, and I was the head of programming of 190 some odd channels. And the merger was going to go on, and I was going to have a job that had that and probably had much greater responsibility on the other side of the merger. Who knows, but that's what the path was. And at the time, she said, I'd like to have you come run our radio channel. And really what it was is that we were operating from two different places. She was offering me a job that I thought was much too small, and she was offering me a much bigger job and hadn't really communicated it to me. So I passed, and as the story goes, I left her office, and within 10 to 15 minutes, she called back, and we came in, and she tried a different line and offered me the job to come to Harpo as an executive vice president. And of course, I didn't say no to that one. And it was life-changing, and I'm forever grateful to her for that opportunity. And I think what I learned out of that is that I was understanding what she was saying, and we were just sort of yinging and yanging back and forth. And so I didn't say no. I didn't turn her down multiple times. I didn't do that. But it was a really great opportunity, and I will say that going there was preparing me for yet another chapter of my life that I'm on with her and Sherry right now with our network, which is an exciting new venture, which is totally different than anything else. So at every turn, everything happens for a reason, but it's a very fun time.
All right, well, thanks to the students for some great questions, and we're going to be back with more from Erik Logan here on 15 Minutes Of, so stay tuned.
Scooby-Doo-Up-Boo-Bam! You're watching OCU TV!
OCU is smart, fun, cute, driven, so busy, expressive, exciting. But you know this, you go here. OCU is my school.
Welcome back to 15 Minutes Of. If you're just joining us, we're here with Erik Logan, and right now we're joined with Bob Spinks, and we're going to talk a little bit about Erik's life in Oklahoma as you knew him. So can you tell us some great stories about the man that's on our show
We have
today?
an hour or two to talk.
We have as long as you need.
I've known Erik for over 30 years. And our history together began in 1981 when I went to work for the Boy Scout Council in Oklahoma City as a professional staff, and was handed the assignment from early September till November to put together a show for the Scoutorama stage show. So I was kind of scrambling, trying to find talent. They wanted a lot of kids in the show and everything. I hear about this Cub Scout that can do magic tricks.
Just another one of your many talents.
He's still doing magic tricks today, I guess.
That's what I've done all day.
So what did you do? What was the trick?
Well, I did a lot of different. I levitated my brother.
Awesome.
So there was a lot of trial and error
Yeah,
there.
he hadn't come down yet.
No, that's right. But it was, my father was very involved in Scouts and in my life, as well as my mother. And we would go and perform shows at like Crossroads Mall and Quail Springs Mall in the middle, and it was fun. And then I started doing that for some birthday parties, trying to pick up some nickels in the parking lot, as we'd say. But that's how Bob heard about me.
Awesome. So are there any kind of lessons that you took away from Bob or from Scouts that are applicable in your life today?
Oh my gosh, for sure. I the thing about it is that Bob changed my life in a very profound way. Bob took me under his wing and actually gave me something that I really didn't know I had, which was this confidence to be more of who I could be. And
Why am I feeling product liability? No.
Right, and all the lawsuits that come in as a result. But Bob singled me out and believed in me, and put me into a situation that allowed me to, experience things that a normal 10, 11, 12-year-old boy wouldn't do. And then as I matured through my life, with Bob, he was there at every major milestone of my life, not just through scouting, but just my life with my parents, my life at graduation, when I got my Eagle Award. All those things were, Bob was a seminal point. And when I recently was inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Oklahoma City Public Schools, I asked Bob to speak on my behalf, because he transformed it in such a positive way to me. And I would say one of the big lessons was that when I was serving on one of his many scout camps, I was on 2 of them, and he was down at Slippery Falls 20 plus years, or camp.
Well, it felt like it.
Felt like it for sure. We as campers and even staffers, we knew him as Dr. Bob Spinks, and so was Dr. Bob. And I never quite understood the difference between that you can get a doctor in like many things. I can be a doctor in flowers, or I can be a doctor in upholstery, I can be a doctor in this. Bob was a doctor of a harpsichord. And so he had this wonderful harpsichord, and it was a musical doctor. And so I was like, oh, okay, so if I get bit by a rattlesnake, I don't call you unless I want to be serenaded by what happens. And he still serenaded me, and it made me sing a lot, and really helped me learn that I should not be a performer for a profession. So that was probably one of the greatest gifts in the world.
That was a learning experience.
Yeah, it was a learning. I should not sing, yes.
I'm sure. So, Bob, what was it about Erik that kind of drew you in?
Well, Erik had a lot of confidence from the very beginning, and when you're casting a show, particularly in short order, you're trying to find someone who can fit in. But what we found very quickly with Erik was we couldn't seem to find any responsibility that he wouldn't rise to the occasion, whether it was being in these productions that we did, and some of the productions were small casts, some were very large casts. We did a Scout Circus back in 1989 that had 6,000 young people in the cast. Erik was the announcer for that production. And so it became very much a thing of dependability. I always knew if Erik said, yes, I'll be there and I'll do that, I knew he would be there. He would do it to a very high degree of professionalism, that I could count on him. I wouldn't have to worry about that part. And, working on the staff at Slippery Falls, along with about 60 other guys his age, they carried the camp. As camp director, I trained them, but when camp started, I couldn't do all the things they did, teaching all the badges and taking care of relationships with 400 campers and all that stuff. I had to have folks like Erik do that. So
Somebody dependable and
absolutely.
reliable. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for joining us today on 15 Minutes of. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing some stories about your life in Oklahoma. So thank you guys both so much. And thank you guys for joining us today on 15 Minutes of. Hope to see you next time. Until then, I'm Sonia Barrett.